Welcome to EVTN News, your source for Catholic information. I don't want to claim to be comprehensive because I don't talk about everything. There's a lot of things I don't talk about, and there's a reason why I don't talk about a lot of things. But I do talk about news that maybe you won't hear anywhere else. And some things you will, but some things you won't. Starting about things you'll probably hear other places. Pachamama. Remember the pagan idol in the Vatican during the Amazon Synod? What was it, October of 2019? Um, Apparently, it brought a chastisement upon the whole world, but you can't say that, right? We're not allowed to say that. Obedience. You have to be obedient to Pope Francis, and he wanted the idol in the Vatican. Or, well, maybe not. He was so angry that it reappeared at the Masses later on. And he criticized the person, Alexander Teshugoel, for throwing it in the river. But he was so angry about it. He didn't want it. But it still made its way back. Imagine that. Ever feel like you're being lied to? Anyway, the statue of the Pachamama made its appearance in Brazil at a mass recently for the regional assemblies of the Latin American and Caribbean during the continental stage meetings of the Synod on Synodality. Oh, wow. Photos show several bishops celebrating the Mass with the pagan idol prominently featured in the sanctuary in front of the ambo. The Diocese of San Jose de Mayo posted the photo on Facebook celebrating the event. At a homily given at the closing Mass of the Regional Assembly, which took place from March 6th to March 10th in Brasilia, Bishop Pedro Jubenville, Vice President of the Paraguayan Episcopal Conference, with the pantheistic language of the cultic nature religions, such as those in which the Incan idol of the Pachamama, Mother Earth, is worshipped, he emphasized listening to the land, the flora, the water, and the cry of the earth. Sounds like Pope Francis language. Sounds pagan. Sounds like it's not Catholic. So anathema, right? Is that what you say? But if you listen to the new president of the USCCB, maybe there's a different story. Following decisions taken by the so-called German Synod between March 9th and 11th, the leader of the American bishops, Archbishop Timothy Broglio, appealed to German Catholics to stay faithful to the Pope. Imagine that. Wow. He said the German Catholic faithful will follow the teachings of the Bishop of Rome and his successors and will abstain from allowing themselves to be influenced by the synodal councils or any other things that the Pope has rejected. What has the Pope rejected? The German Synod? You know, Cardinal Hollerich, who has openly expressed his support for at least 4 heretical ideas, was Cardinal Hollerich promotes the same things that the German Synod promotes. And Cardinal Hollerich was appointed to Pope Francis' Council of Cardinal Advisors. So does Pope Francis really oppose the German synodal path, the German synodal way, whatever it's called? Does he really oppose that? I think he just opposes them moving out of step with how he wants it. I don't think he actually opposes their ideas. Because if he did, he would condemn the bishops and cardinals who support these rotten heretical ideas instead of making them cardinals. Speaking of Pope Francis, he was interviewed by the Argentinian news site Perfil. Francis was asked, "What is your own interpretation of hell and paradise, and what happens to people who go to hell, and what happens to those who go to paradise?" Giving a trademark, lengthy, convoluted, and somewhat evasive answer, Francis appeared to deny the existence of hell as an actual place. He said, "Hell is not a place. If one goes to attend the last judgment and sees the faces of those who go to hell, who go to hell, one gets scared. If you read Dante, you get scared, but these are media representations. Hell is a state. It is a state of the heart, of the soul, of a posture towards life, towards values, towards the family, towards everything. There are people who live in hell because they seek it. There are others who do not, who are suffering, and who goes to hell, to that state. They are already living from here. If you ask me how many people are in hell, I answer you with a famous sculpture of the Cathedral of Vézelay. Providing a description of the sculpture, Francis noted that the sculpture has Judas hanging and the devil pulling him down, and on the other side they have the good shepherd Jesus, who grabs Judas and puts him on his shoulders with an ironic smile. It would have been better for him to have never been born. Yet he goes to heaven. Pope Francis said, "What does that mean? That salvation is stronger than damnation." This pilaster is a catechesis that should make us think. God's mercy is always at our side, and what God wants is always to be with his people, with his children, and not for them to leave him. So he said hell is not a place. And Bishop Barron said something similar. It's the Vatican II theology. But if you look at the Catholic theology, it's very clear. In the basics of the Baltimore Catechism, it says hell is a place. So what are you going with? Pope Francis or thousands of years of church tradition? It's up to you. Remember Bishop Calvin Klein? A news entity contacted Spanish-born Chur, Switzerland Bishop Joseph Maria Bonnermain, an Opus Dei numerary. He claimed that confession was not necessary for absolution and that it could be replaced by a simple examination of conscience with the possibility of a personal talk for those who wanted it. So you got Francis Bishop saying that confession is not necessary, and great. All right. 2 new ministries in the Archdiocese of St. Paul and Minneapolis seek to promote healing for those harmed by clergy abuse. A homebound ministry for victim survivors of clergy abuse to receive the Eucharist, and a support group for employees of faith-based institutions who have experienced abuse are now offered through the Archdiocesan Office of Ministerial Standards and Safe Environment. Okay, but listen to this. Paula Kaempfer, the office's outreach coordinator for restorative justice and abuse prevention, said her personal experience as a survivor of abuse and listening to other victim survivors helped guide the development of the homebound Eucharistic ministry. Oh, this is not good. Eucharistic ministers. It's worse. She said they are Catholics through and through, but they cannot set foot inside of a church again because their abuse either happened in a church itself or it happened by a priest, and they can't face a priest. But many victim survivors have a deep hunger for the Eucharist, Kaempfer said. The ministry, therefore, is a way to bring them Eucharist, to let them know how much they are cared for and loved by Jesus and the Church. The Eucharist is brought to them by a minister who is also a victim survivor of clergy abuse. Do you understand that? So this ministry by the Archdiocese of St. Paul and Minneapolis brings communion to people who have not been into a church, possibly for decades, who have not spoken to a priest for decades, which means they haven't been to confession in decades. They've missed Mass for decades, which is a mortal sin. And then these Eucharistic ministers are bringing them the Eucharist. How scandalous. Can you believe that? And this is, I don't know, is it promoted by the Archdiocese of Minneapolis-St. Paul. 2 new ministries in the Archdiocese. It appears that this is through the Archdiocesan office. It's promoted by the Archdiocese. This is rotten. I mean, I understand there's a way to reach out to these people, but not by bringing them communion if they're in mortal sin. How can a bishop approve this? How can a bishop approve blessings of LMNOP? How can a bishop approve communion for politicians who are in a state of public mortal sin for supporting abortion or administering LMNOP weddings? Hello, Living Purgatory. Thank you everyone for joining me on the live stream. Oh boy. So Bishop Ray, Fréjus Toulon Bishop in France, Dominique Ray, 70 years old. He's known as a conservative bishop, and he will be expelled from his diocese. The decision has been taken and only needs to be made official. Bishop Ray has been banned from ordaining. He has been banned from ordaining priests in his diocese for over a year, maybe. Last year, the Vatican suspended ordinations because he was kind of conservative. Imagine that. Who's next? Now, this is in France. We haven't seen a lot of this in the United States yet. But who's next in the United States? Well, there's a bishop in Puerto Rico. He wasn't a fan of the jab, and so he got kicked out very quickly by the Francis Church. So Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, but what about in the United States? Will Strickland get kicked out? Strickland has a lot of support. That will be interesting. That will be very interesting. Coeur de Leon, he's been disobedient. He excommunicated Pelosi, who is is she a favorite of Francis's? Some of the bishops have been critical of Biden. Will they get kicked out? How about Paparocki? He's not so quick to go along with this Latin Mass nonsense by Pope Francis. But plenty of bishops are. Plenty of bishops are happy to ban you from the sacraments or ban you from the Mass. Move your Mass to a barn. Or ban it completely. And say, well, whatever. Oh yeah, and you can't have your reverent Novus Ordo. You have to have Mass facing the people. It's just rotten, compromised. What good are these bishops? Why do you need to pay a bishop's salary? Cut it down. You can put in a branch manager. You don't need a bishop. If all he's doing is taking orders from the Vatican, oh, Pope Francis, what should I do about this Latin Mass community? It's full of Catholics. Well, ban it. And that's the problem. It's like communism. You know? These Latin Mass communities are shoved off into the middle of nowhere, into a barn or a gym. They're treated as third-class citizens, banned from the sacraments, got to do everything underground, or else the communists might find out. It's ridiculous. And it needs to end. We need a new pope. Or we need a Catholic pope. Now, I do want to mention a little bit about secrecy. I don't have any documentation on this because it's secret. A lot of, and you've heard about this information before, A lot of Latin masses, the bishop is submitting a request to Rome for an extension of the Latin Mass in a parish church. Rome has granted some of these extensions. It's entirely possible they've granted it before Roche released his most recent rotten garbage against the Latin Mass. But anyway, the Vatican is granting like a 2-year extension on the Latin Mass to be said at certain parish churches. However, this information, even though it's being passed on to the bishop and the chancery of the diocese of different dioceses in the United States, this information may or may not be relayed to the pastor who says the Latin Mass. So the one who needs to know is essentially kept in the dark by the bishop in some cases. Much less the laity that attend the Latin Mass are absolutely kept in the dark. Some of them don't even know about diocesan policies regarding the sacraments. They're kept in the dark for that. And they have to request the bishop. They have to request it from the bishop, and the bishop declines. And then what? Go to the SSPX. Or you can do underground sacraments. If you take if someone takes their baby to be baptized, and it's just them and the godparents and the priest, the baptism happens. Do you know if it's old rite or new rite? You don't know. Will the parents tell you? Maybe not. All you need, I believe, is one witness at the baptism, one godparent. I think 2 is, preferred. So there you go. You just have a few people there and have the old rite sacraments, underground sacraments. I just finished emailing a Byzantine eparchy for confirmation. You don't need permission from the Latin Rite bishop. And the difference between Byzantine sacraments and Latin sacraments, there's not big differences. They use the same language. The baptism has exorcisms in the Byzantine Rite. The Byzantine blessing of religious items is actually, especially the Byzantine blessing of icons, is actually very powerful. It's a neat blessing. I encourage you to go to a Byzantine priest if you have icons to get them blessed, because it is really neat. But the difference between the old rite sacraments and the Byzantine rite sacraments, there's not a lot of differences from what I can tell. Now, I'm still very new to the Byzantine rite, but the Byzantines use the same language in their liturgy, similar language to the Latin Mass. It's not watered down, because you can get that in some cases, but it's not watered down in the Byzantine rite. The sacraments, the ones that I am aware of, are not watered down. If the bishop bans, I've heard of this is particularly egregious and ridiculous. Bishops ban First Communions at the Latin Mass, but you can get your Second Communion or your Third Communion or whatever at the Latin Mass, just not your First Communion. That's appalling, pathetic, whatever you want to call it. It makes no sense either. You can do communion outside of Mass for your First Communion. That's one way. You can do communion at the Byzantine Divine Liturgy. That's another way. Or you can do an illegal First Communion. Illegal First Communion. Is it illegal to receive communion in your diocese? I don't know. Maybe if you're excommunicated. But even then, in this day and age, is being excommunicated by the Francis Church? Will trads be excommunicated by the Francis Church? Because the German bishops certainly won't. If you support heresy, you won't be excommunicated. If you're Father Rupnik, S.J., you won't be excommunicated. If you manipulate nuns, if you rape nuns, You won't be excommunicated. You might be excommunicated by Father Sosa of the Jesuits, but the excommunication will be removed by Pope Francis. If you're a predator, will you be excommunicated? You might be laicized. What does that mean? It means that the money's still there. And you could pretend like you're losing your memory. Barn would be better than canceled. Well, except in the winter. I mean, I guess. I don't know. Of course, you can do a house mass. I was in Minneapolis, St. Paul Diocese. I was in Minneapolis, St. Paul Diocese. Very LMNOP. Okay. Not surprising. Hi, all. What do you think of the SSPV? I've never been SSPV. They're, for you guys, they're a branch off of the SSPX because some priests didn't agree with what the SSPX stood for. And I think there's some sympathy, like, I can see what they're saying in certain instances. I believe they disagreed with the SSPX accepting annulments, and I'm not a fan. I don't think annulments are really justified in almost any case. I don't think divorce is necessarily a sin. It's just divorce and remarriage. Now, if you're divorcing, for stupid things like if someone's divorcing because they found another girlfriend or something, that's obviously, what can I say about that? I mean, what can you really say about that? Obviously, that's not right. But in terms of the SSPV, I know people who have gone and they said it, I don't know, don't really want to say it on YouTube. They said the atmosphere was just not, how do I explain it? They didn't like it. The priest, I guess he just kind of ranted about Vatican II and the new Mass in the sermon, and I don't go to the Latin Mass to hear about Vatican II or the Novus Ordo. Let's be honest. I don't want to hear that in the sermon. I don't care. Because to me, when I go to the Latin Mass, it's like Vatican II never existed. And that's why the Latin Mass, that's one of the great things about the Latin Mass. When I go to the Latin Mass, I don't care about the Novus Ordo. I don't. I don't want to hear about it. If you go there because you want to practice the Catholic faith. And that's what's nice about the SSPX. I've heard several sermons from SSPX priests. I don't think they've even mentioned Vatican II once in any of the sermons. I don't remember them ever mentioning the new Mass in any of the sermons. Because to them, it doesn't matter. You're there for the Catholic faith. So, SSPV, I don't know. No, I don't think they do Bugnini Holy Week, which is 62 Holy Week. And I know that's a point of contention amongst trads. And if you have a Byzantine church nearby, then they won't do Bugnini Holy Week. So, that's Bugnini. He radically changed Holy Week, from what I understand. He eliminated the phrase perfidious Jews. That was kind of a point of disgust amongst trads. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't really know. But that's just how it is. I've heard SSPX talk about Vatican II. Okay, that's too bad. Because it's not relevant. I mean, they talk about it in their podcasts. but you can choose not to listen to them. So, anyway, the people that I know didn't like their experience at the SSPV. That's all I'll say about that. So, anyway, that's all I have for today. The secrecy amongst the bishops and the chanceries regarding the Latin Mass, it seems like that's kind of common at this point, and it's not Catholic. It's not a Catholic approach to things. My Benedictus magazine has a prayer for the conversion of the Jays on Good Friday. Okay. That may be, well, and I believe that's the case, but I think they may have de-emphasized some of the language. I'll have to check. I have a missal, a post 62 missal, so I'll have to look at that and see what it says. And actually, I would like to at some point do some more book reviews, and I actually just purchased several more books, so I hope to review those once I read them. I have a bunch of books just sitting around that I will get to at some point, and I'm in the middle of reading several more books, so just more. I just gotta state it publicly, and then that'll maybe motivate me to spend less time on the internet and more time reading. And you probably noticed there weren't a lot of news stories today, and that's because I filter out a lot of them. Some of them it's not really worth discussing. Disgusting. It's disgusting that the Latin masses are being banned, but some of them are probably not worth discussing. Father J.M. did a good talk on the Good Friday prayer. That is now done away with. Okay, is SSPV excommunicated? No, I don't think so, but I guess it really depends. They kind of, I think they consecrate their own bishops. I don't know. I think they're under Bishop Kelly. But excommunication is an interesting topic because you can have the late sententiae excommunication, which is an automatic excommunication for doing certain things, including denying, and this is what Bishop Paprocki was saying, that McElroy is excommunicated late sententiae, which is, I don't know, probably true. I mean, Bishop Paprocki would know more than I would about it. But no one really does. I read an article that said, like, it's kind of, I don't want to say irrelevant, but it's like, okay, so what now? You know, you say, okay, this bishop is excommunicated, or these German bishops are excommunicated late sententiae. Great. What are you going to do about it? And Cardinal Burke and someone else, they released a strongly worded statement against these German bishops. Great. Oh, Cardinal Mueller. Yeah, Cardinal Burke and Cardinal Mueller. He said, oh, these German bishops are bad. Okay, great. I said that too. I mean, not that I'm a cardinal. You know, their statements carry more weight than mine. And if they said we need to have an imperfect council to investigate the errors of Francis to see if he is a heretic, they could do that. I can't as a layman. I'd love to. All of you would love to. But I can't. And we can't. Only they can. And they don't. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with no Mass, no sacraments. We have the Mass. We have the sacraments. We just have to drive to get them. Or ask an SSPX priest to drive. That leaves us in a tough spot. No real leadership. That's true. I mean, you have some bishops like Bishop Strickland that who's just as surprised as all of us that the German bishops are moving forward, and there's no leadership in Rome to stop them. In fact, it seems like they're being encouraged. Bishop Strickland's watching the situation, and even if he is removed as bishop, as a diocesan bishop, I mean, he has his weekly radio show on Virgin Most Powerful Radio. He posts on Twitter, and so he's not going away. FSSP to ordain 11 deacons this year. It's going to be on March 25th, and I'm really excited because I know two guys. They're great guys, and they're going to be ordained to the diaconate. And in Lincoln, Nebraska, at the FSSP, Our Lady of Guadalupe Seminary. I'm really excited for them, and I've known them for a few years now, and you couldn't ask for better guys to be ordained priests. So definitely pray for these men. Pray that there will be no problems with their ordination to the priesthood in a year. And I am really excited for them, though. So, and I do hope to be present at their first Mass, but obviously with the situation in different dioceses of banning priests from saying the Latin Mass, severely restricting the Latin Mass, that may or may not be possible, which is sad, but I hope that things work out. I mean, who knows, but in a year we could have a Catholic Pope. Is it likely? I don't know. This means hopefully 11 new priests this year. Well, and the FSSP they're doing ordinations in, a few months maybe? It's going to be after Easter. So they're ordaining some priests this year too. I mean, every year, they're growing, but not as much as we would like, And SSPX is growing, but not as quickly as I would like. There's a possibility that priests can switch over. I wish the FSSP would take diocesan priests, because it's getting worse in the dioceses. I mean, these priests are covering 4 parishes, and they're being beat down and being told that, banned from administering the old rite sacraments. The dioceses, they're complaining, oh, we don't have any baptisms. Oh, at the Latin Mass parishes they do. But Bishop, you banned the sacraments. So you're complaining about not having as many baptisms, not very many weddings, but you're banning people from Latin Mass weddings. You're banning people from getting old rite sacraments. Shame on you. You're getting what you're asking for. And eventually your vocations are going to run out. Why do you think that is? Why don't people want to go to your diocese? Because you're banning them from the sacraments. These Catholics, well, not that any Latin Mass Catholics would want to be a diocesan priest, but these people have the Catholic faith, and you're denying them the sacraments. It's pathetic. You need to really take a look in the mirror and see if that's what you want to do. See if you want to alienate these Catholics for the rest of your career as bishop. Anyway, how many bishops watch this channel? Probably 0. But if there are bishops watching this channel, who cares what Rome says? Administer the old rite sacraments. We're in a state of emergency. It's sinful to obey sinful orders. This has been EVTN News. Thank you for watching. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.